Electricast.
I'm Benjamin Hall, Fox News correspondent and New York Times best-selling author. Join me for my brand new podcast, Searching for Heroes. Make sure you subscribe to this series wherever you download podcasts and leave a rating and review.
Why wait to see if you'll get something you like this Valentine's Day when you can go to BlueNile.com and find something you'll love? Whether you're looking to treat yourself to a little winter sparkle or show a galentine how much you appreciate them, Blue Nile offers a wide selection of high-quality designs, expert guidance, and free 30-day returns for the ultimate peace of mind. You can even design your own jewelry. Right now, save up to 50% at BlueNile.com. That's BlueNile.com.
Welcome into Missing the Point, MTP Boston. Mike Marcangelo joined alongside by the real DK. I always say the real DK, but it's DK Sizzle.
Damn, am I the real DK? Who knows? Maybe I'm a cop in another dimension.
Could be a sim.
Can't trust anything.
But, you know, this is like, you said it before we started this, like two halves, right? You and Bobby usually nail down the power rankings, and Ray and I usually handle MTP Boston. Both are out of service, out of commission. So we have to give you the show. Why not give you MTP Boston? We're going to talk about the Patriots, the Celtics. We're going to start with the Patriots. They just suffered another loss, 20-17 to the amazing, high-powered Washington Commanders to fall to 2-7. DK, you said that you were excited about to talk about the Patriots. Just before we get into the nitty-gritty of the game, what are your thoughts on this team? Because you haven't really talked about, they're not in the power rankings. So I'd really heard your thoughts on the Patriots on air.
I thought coming into the season, I was reticent to write them off as like the team that they've apparently turned into, which is like probably a 6-win team, 7-win team this season. Like in a perfect world. Actually, not in a perfect world. I think you guys should lose as many games as possible. We'll get into that in a little bit. I really thought that their defense on paper coming into the season was going to enable them to do that Patriots thing and that Bill Belichick thing that you guys seem to be able to pull off every year, where you're never quite out of the conversation. But I think what's happened since is it's not that the defense wasn't what I expected. It's that they're impossible to really judge because of how inept the offense is. And you know, I watched this with a few teams across the league. Defenses in the modern NFL, like, they need rest. You know, if you want, like, you can bend them to the point of breaking them now. And if your offense can't stay on the field and you're turning the ball, either because you're turning the ball over at a rapid pace, or you're just getting immediate 3-and-outs and like punting the ball away, your defense is going to suffer for it. So I don't feel like I can accurately judge what your defense looks like until you can start actually managing games in the way that that Bill Belichick obviously clearly wants to always play. Like, he's always been a game manager on the offensive side of the ball, as with maybe the exception of the Randy Moss, Tom Brady year, where it just let it off the leash, and that's just like, we'll do whatever we want. It really always was like, you can't give Brady the ball with X amount of time left on the clock. You can't, because he'll manage his way down the field and he'll pull it off. You can't see the field with your offense was a big, I think, kind of check mark for the early Patriots teams. And you know, I know you and I have talked about the Brady versus Belichick stuff this week, and like where Belichick is sitting in your mind now, fresh off of like these defeats. I guess what I think of this team really does go hand in hand with what I think of Belichick. The offense looks dated. Like, it really just looks like it's not keeping pace with the modern NFL, the speed of linebackers and the way that defensive ends can rush you now. But that's also a little bit of a guess, Mike, because as you say, week in, week out, you don't have the personnel around your first round, 15th overall draft pick QB to really determine like what the issue is. Is it that Bill Belichick's systems, the Patriot way, is fictional? Or is it the probably more realistic and likely scenario that his failure really came as a GM, and the personnel you're putting out on the field and the offensive side of the ball is not enabling you to carry out any sort of system? You know, no matter how complicated or simple it might be, you're like, I don't think you have the guys out there to do it. So what do I think of them? I think they need a full overhaul on the offensive side of the ball. And I think that I know we'll go on to talk about this, but I'm actually not 100% sure QB is where you should start. But that's just a recent phenomenon in my brain.
Yeah, I mean, so when you and I had these conversations, the reason why it sticks to me, I'm so, I guess, anti-Bill now, is he's picking the personnel, and you see it. Now after last year, now in this year, it feels like he was lulled into a sense of security, thinking that he could always surround the offense with just trash players, and they're not trash. Some of them turned out to be really good, but he didn't have to get the highly talented players because they'll just figure it out. For me as someone who just lives it, right? And you were when you were on this coast, you lived it too. We always saw that Brady's just going to make the best out of everybody, and Bill just doesn't believe that. He just thought that was just how the offense would run, and I can't fathom how he can look at the last 2 years, or even if you after they rattled off that 7-game win streak in 2021. Ever since then, they've been trash, and just let's see. We need like a stud wide receiver, not with a ailing knee. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you there as far as the irresponsibility of thinking you can always get away with what he got away with for as long as he did. I mean, I read somewhere, I think this is accurate, but it seems bananas that you guys haven't picked in the top 10 since 2006. Is that true?
2008, I think it was Gerard Mayo.
Gerard Mayo, who's like
Yeah.
now a coach. So
Yep.
it's been a really, really long time, right?
Yep.
So since you've had a top 10 pick, and it's like, obviously that was by design. I mean, we watched it work. Like that was like the joke. It was like, dude, that guy was a 4th round pick. Like, oh, that guy was a 5th round pick. And that can only work for so long. Like it's kind of saying, it's signing up to the idea that like basically college scouts and all draft analysts analysts are complete buffoons and like don't know what you know about like what's coming into the league. What was probably more likely is you could probably get skill position players that were 4th round players in the 4th round and quality of a 4th round player, and they were probably correctly assessed that way most of the time. But you had the greatest quarterback to ever play the game throwing the ball to them in the skill positions.
Yeah.
So, I think that that's probably a much more likely scenario, and you no longer have that luxury. So now the question is he going to accept that? And is he going to look at this likely top 10, hopefully for you guys? And I do want to talk about like potentially what, hopefully we can talk about, potentially what you're going to do in the draft if you keep that high draft pick. But you might be top 5 in the draft this year. And that to me is like, it's a make or break pick. It's like, it can change the fortunes of your franchise, or it can damn them, And I guess the worry and my guess would be for the anxiety of your fan base, not what I'm a member of, but one I have close ties to for obvious reasons. If I were in your position to empathize, my worry would be, is Bill the man to use that top 5 pick right now? Like that's sort of the question you're asking yourselves, right? Like okay, forget everything he's done. We have to be pragmatic right now. Is he the guy you want with the final say on who you get 3rd, 4th, 5th overall in the NFL draft? I can't see how you could possibly say yes to that unless you think, well, he's had all these low round, really, really low picks. He hasn't been able to pick like this guy or this guy or this guy. Maybe he will pull off like the great like talent scouting of the top 5 and really figure out. And he doesn't take the guy from USC, Caleb Williams. He takes like the next guy, and it's like, oh, that guy turned out to be the guy. Or like you said, wide receiver. What I would honestly do is probably get Marvin Harrison Jr. and just call it a day, because that is the Bill Belichick method too, right? Where it's like, just get the best guy available. Forget your positional needs. Just get the best guy available. You also happen to need wide receivers, but
yeah. The thing about that though is his Bill doesn't like trading draft capital. So as it's currently constituted right now, we can get into it, because I think what you said is true, that I've fully believed that Mac is not the ultimate issue here, right? I think he is part of the problem, but I don't think he's the overwhelming problem, especially when you look at that last drive of the game. He had them driving down the field. He hit Juju Smith-Schuster in the fucking hands, and it was a pick. Now,
Yeah, that
is
was
that?
fun.
Yeah, I was going to say. Now you can say that maybe it was a bad throw. They said on the Fox broadcast that he threw it into a tight window. It's no. When they replayed it, hit it right in the hands, and he drops it. If he's not the issue, and you're in the 5th pick, my assumption is that Marvin Harrison Jr. is probably going to go like 2nd or 3rd, right?
Probably.
To the Bears. So you're not going to trade into that. And if Bill's running this draft, he's going to draft an offensive tackle. So
You need one. You need one then.
I'd rather him pay one. Like,
yeah. Well, honestly, I think the Cowboys left tackle is an unrestricted free agent in the free agency coming up 2024. So I think you should maybe go for him.
right.
I agree with you. I think blindside tackle in the situation you're in, you go get no, maybe not even a veteran, a guy like, fresh off his 5th year option or whatever.
Yeah.
Whoever's out there on that side of the ball, a guy that knows how to play the position first and foremost, because like that is essentially what you're saying, right? You don't know if Mac's good or bad because he doesn't have time to throw the ball and he doesn't have anyone to throw the ball to. So those are the 2 things you need to address, like first and foremost, right? And then you can figure out if Mac's the guy or not. But if you have a 4-year or 5-year contract in a top 10 veteran left tackle, and you have a 5-year rookie contract with like a top 5 wide receiver out of the draft, I think you're in a really, really good position to make a move in other areas while you assess Mac Jones in a fair test. You have to give him a fair environment. Also, I'm not sure quarterback matters as much as it used to. And I know that might be an outlandish thing to say, but I think my theory is that with the way this season and also last season shaped out in the regular season, I think we're going to see the first Super Bowl champion, not top 10 QB champion that we have in like 25 years, right? Like even the years where like Joe Flacco wins, it's hard to make the argument that he's an all-time in his era top 10 QB, but that year he was, right? Like he statistically and his playoff runs, the Eli Manning playoff runs, the Eli Manning crunch time minutes, like that was a guy you wanted in like one of the 10 QBs you wanted that season was that guy, right? So it's been a long time, and like we have the Trent Dilfer jokes like at the ready, but I'm starting to think like if Brock Purdy can and I know that they're on a bit of a skid, but if Brock Purdy can put together an offense as dynamic as the one in San Francisco, and Tua can put together an offense as dynamic as the one in Miami, and if that is really the future of offense, is this kind of West Coast spread, zone run, sort of hybrid offense that, nobody can really seem to deal with unless you are like the Eagles or the 49ers or the Cowboys, and you can like punch these teams in the mouth. So then it's, maybe the trench warfare is better. It's a fun debate, but it doesn't really involve the QB at this point. Like Jalen Hurts, I don't think anybody would have expected him to be what he is on the Eagles. And
right.
It's hyper specific what he does. It's hyper specific what he does. It's not like your traditional like pocket QB, the guys that have always won the Super Bowl, or guys that can like scramble and improvise like the Russell Wilsons of the world back in the day. So that's why I think you might not, to bring it back to the Patriots, you might not need to address Matt as crucially as you would have if you had this kind of QB conundrum 5 to 7 years ago. Now, would I also recommend going and getting a veteran QB to back him up for once? Like a real, like not a like who the fuck is Jarrett Stidham? Like nobody gives a shit. Like Nathan Peterman. Like you don't want that. Like there has to be a guy you can pay a little bit more to that will like help him get a little bit better. Like, I don't know who's out there coming up in 2024, but like if you wanted to pay some money and like you wanted to take a gamble on Kirk Cousins' fucking leg, and the Vikings don't want to re-sign him because of what they don't know what he's going to look like. And then you also have Mac Jones there. That might be a move because I know his contract's up. Yeah. I know that they loved him in Minnesota, but that might be something to just sort of start putting together some sort of saleable, like legitimate offense,
So like when we talk about the draft, and so this is what I think is hard for me to do is I don't think that that the Patriots can run this draft room the way that they need to if Bill is the one doing it. So that's why I think that they do.
Well, you got to fire him now, then, right? You got to fire him now. Like
but
you got to fire him
now. I don't think you can do him the disservice of after everything that he's done for you to fire him in the middle of the season, right? Like I do think that Kraft wants to do right by Bill as much as possible. Because what I would do is I would take Bo Nix at number 5, right? You stash him away for a year. You start Mac. You actually go out and you get a blindside tackle. And then you do what the Eagles and what the Dolphins did with their, what many people were saying mediocre quarterbacks, is you go and you find a number 1 type wide receiver and bring him in. And then you know what you have. So again, the Patriots going to have close to $98 million of real cash to spend in this offseason. So in my opinion, you can get a number 1 receiver. If you want to bring Ryan Tannehill up here to be a veteran quarterback since this contract's over, do that. Draft Bo next, because then maybe you have the next guy if Mac isn't the guy. But at least give him a chance with talent. And your number 1 wide receiver cannot be Devontae Parker backed up by Juju Smith. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. I wonder too, like, there's so many situations primed to explode with quarterbacks and wide receiver combos across the league right now. Like, I know the Bengals are doing much better, and like they do this every year where they start a little slow and they get better and better. And also Joe Burrow was a little beat up, and T Higgins was a little beat up, so you can see them coming back to themselves. But that was like you heard Jamar Chase like start this whole wide receiver conversation up. Of course, the year that like we should be talking about running back pay, the wide receivers are like, no, me, like you fucking Adonis. But it's fine. He kind of says like, I'm always open on every fucking play, and it's like, okay, cool. Then you have like the very clear path to Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. And it's just like, you can just see Stephon Diggs being like, fuck this, like after a little bit, because it's like they're becoming more and more reliant on him making plays after the catch. He's watching this QB make huge high profile mistakes in the red zone and at the end of games, and in the red zone at the end of games. In situations where it's like, he might just be fed up. And there's guys like that all over the league. And I think you could go pay one of them if you got that 98 million, that sweet 98 million burning a hole in your back pocket. And you go like, look, it's the Patriots, it's Bill Belichick, or I don't know who it's going to be at that point, to be honest. But
it's
the Patriots. There's a culture. We're going to pay you a lot of money, like a lot of money. And because you're going to have to overpay, because there's not really another incentive, right, to be coming to like have possibly Mac Jones or possibly, who is the guy you said you wanted in the draft to stash?
Bo Nix.
Yeah, possibly Bo Nix, possibly Mac Jones throwing to you. So you're going to have to overpay a little bit at that position. But those guys are out there,
Yeah. And so if Bill's running the draft, right, again, if you had the 5th overall pick right now, and you said that, in a perfect world that they could win 7 games, that would mean that they have to go 5-3 for the remaining 8. And I don't think that they have 5 more wins left in them. Right. So that's not going to happen. They're probably going to finish somewhere around 5-12, 4-13. If that happens and they're still within like the top 6, Bill would get either a tackle, or he would do what he always does and go defense. And honestly, like to your point, if Judon is healthy and Gonzo is healthy, this defense is fine. Like it's a top 15 defense if you have your star rusher and your star corner.
So yeah, I think so. I mean, I thought that coming into the season, to be honest with you. That was my first instinct on that.
So if you can get Bill to say, hey, listen, I don't need to be the GM anymore. You guys can pick the players and I'll coach them to the best. That's the best case scenario, because
do you think that's going to happen though? Do you think
no.
Take the demotion?
I mean, I would take a demotion in my professional life if it didn't come with a pay cut. You can call me whatever the fuck you want to call me. Just keep paying me the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a it's a public high profile position, and there's as much as people don't want to admit it, like there's no way he's not still doing this because he cares about his legacy. You know what I mean? Like he does. He doesn't give a shit about his legacy. He wants that wins record. I bet you he wants that wins record. That seems tantalizingly close, but like maybe a little bit too far. 25 more games or something he would have to win.
17.
That's I mean, you get that.
So
at this rate, that might take 2 more seasons.
At this rate, it will take 6 more seasons, for Christ's sake. So what you said to him is, Bill, we're not going to touch your pay. And from a fan perspective, right? Like when we're talking about the Bills, what I like most about Bill is that even if he has a number 1, he doesn't abandon all the other aspects of the offense, only focus on that number 1. I mean, they had a 1,000-yard rusher in 2007. Wes Welker had 100 catches in 2007 when Randy Moss was here. Josh Allen and Sean McDermott and the Bills, they just say, okay, we have Josh, we have Stephon, everything else is just gonna work, and it never does.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's why they haven't supplied him with the proper running back room, and then that starts to cascade downwards when Josh Allen has to also do all your groundwork.
Yeah.
And he makes those high profile mistakes at the end, but also like, what would he not be in a position to make those if you just ran the ball well at the start of the game, or you had second and third options? Like, it's more like Cincinnati, where I feel like, yes, of course, Jamar Chase is right there, but I think that Boyd and Higgins are both really, really viable wide receiver 2 options. You can go to either of those. Plus, you got Mixon on the ground, so it's a team game. It's a game where everyone's way fucking faster than they used to be. So there's going to be games where your wide receiver 1 gets locked up. Like, it's just going to happen. But at least their best corner, and I was saying this about the Steelers, with Leah watching the Steelers every weekend. The biggest thing that's happened to them is Deontay Johnson coming back. Not because he has been prolific. It's because their cornerback, their number 1 cornerback on whatever team they're playing, is no longer deciding to pick up Pickens. And he can actually move around and start like causing you damage in the way that he's like built to cause you damage. I mean, I think the same thing is true of Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, you guys are putting him in a position where like their best corner can go like, yeah, I'll take Juju. Like, that's not fair. That's not where he is right now in his career. Like, maybe his rookie season, and I think his sophomore season, he would have been a really, really good wide receiver 1. But like, obviously we've seen since that injury that he's not the same guy. But I did see him play a part in Kansas City very effectively and in very big moments down the stretch for them, winning a Super Bowl last year. So I can't bring myself to say he's the problem. The problem is that he's your, Kendrick Bourne is your wide receiver 1, and he's good. I think he's good genuinely, and he's a hard worker, and he would be a great wide receiver 3, and Juju would be a great wide receiver 2. Or a good wide receiver 2, but you need that guy. You need him. It's the most important thing on an offense. I mean, even look at the Chiefs. Like, they were able to make Kelsey that dude, but when their whole wide receiver room went to fucking just poof, and Tyreek Hill starts, and then all of a sudden they just don't have anybody to throw the ball to. They got fucking Kadarius Toney to throw the ball to, but they still have Travis Kelsey. So like, there's still this force because like he can do a pretty decent. Like, ideally, he's your second option, which is unbelievable, right? But he can do the wide receiver 1 job. He can have that production. But then you look at the game this weekend, they shut him down, right? Which made the Chiefs made it a lot harder for them to score. But they still figured it out because they had Pat Mahomes. Like, yeah, but it's to your point. It's like when you have this guy that can be prolific on offense, even if it's a Derrick Henry, even if it's just a fucking sick running back or something. Like, I think Ramondre is really good. But I don't think you can hang the fucking albatross of the entire offense on him. That's not fair, But no. I mean, look how much better they looked with him producing. I know, admittedly, in a loss, but I mean, look how much better the offense looked with him just producing, and then that puts Mac in a position to be able to actually walk down the field and do some shit,
Right, because he's Mac Jones is a great play action passer, and when the defense sees it,
you got to make the play action work.
Right.
Like, you have to be able to establish a ground game for that to work. That every sixth grader playing Madden knows that. So it's like,
it's like Ray and I were saying early on in the first couple of weeks when everyone was like, well, this offensive line has only let up 1 sack in 3 weeks. They're actually pretty good. It's like, well, if you look, Ramondre Stevenson is averaging 2.8 yards a carry. And I said it before, I'll say it again. He did not forget how to run. That is an offensive line. So
100%.
If he's gone, if that threat of him is gone, and now Mac has to throw 40 times, I mean, if Mac throws 40 times a game, it's a win for whoever we're facing.
I mean, I would love to see the kind of offense that everybody has in mind for Mac Jones, like the high efficiency Jimmy Garoppolo game. Like, I think that you could see a Patriots win with 18 to 23 passes from Mac Jones, but he completes 70% of them. Right. I think that's what a Patriots win looks like in his box score, Yeah. But 100 yards rushing at least, not from Mac, obviously, but like from someone on the field, 100 yards rushing from some collection of people, even jet sweeps. I don't know. I know you guys are averse to those, but like you get those going, and you move it along the ground. I mean, that's the kind of team that you have to be.
It's funny you mentioned it though, or jet sweep, because we always used to say like, if you put Mac on the Dolphins, you put Mac on the Eagles. No, the real test is if you had put Mac Jones on the Raiders with that offense as it was, with Josh Jacobs, with Devontae Adams, and with Jacoby Myers, I would say that they were probably right now a 6-win team, not a 3-win.
Are you talking about
team.
with Josh McDaniels as the head coach though? Because I don't know how true that is, or how good of a litmus test that would be. To be honest,
with that offensive personnel, I don't care who the coach is. I think that Mac Jones would be a better quarterback in that system than Jimmy Garoppolo. I do. They'd have more wins. Obviously, first of all, Jimmy can't stay healthy, but that's a whole nother topic.
I know, but Jimmy's also proven he can go on
when healthy. He's great,
high level. Like if it's a health issue, why you would take Jones over Garoppolo, I would totally understand that. But I think that like if you're talking like the best version of both QBs as far as like what we've seen, I would be hard pressed to turn down Jimmy G between those two. Just because I just think he's hit higher highs,
Yep.
but I do get why you're comparing them. Like everybody understands why the comparison is coming up, right? Everyone understands why the Brock Purdy comparisons are coming up. Like it's a thing of like, you're not saying you're hoping that he can turn into Tom Brady. You're saying like he can be a system quarterback if we put the personnel in there to actually carry out this system. But you also mentioned to me on the Discord, I would check your opinion on this, like in a more nuanced setting. You said like you think the Patriot way is a myth because, Brady was able to make that work because of how good he was. But, you essentially, I'm paraphrasing your opinion on it. But it's like, how do you know if your players couldn't possibly pull it off, even if it was the real thing? You know what I mean? Like, how do you know if it's because you got to put like it's like a snake eating its own tail. You have to do something. Like at this point, like it was a little irresponsible to come into the season like this, I think. And like I think that's another kind of flame you can put on Belichick. But maybe they're tanking on purpose. I don't know. He could be 3D chessing it.
No. So, but
that door number 3 is not an option.
That's not. No, it's not even a door. That's not there. But like to give you the explanation of the Patriot way, I think I'll do better spoken word than written word.
Sure.
Is that whole philosophy works better when you have a guy that's being regarded by everyone else in the league as the best, and he's taking the shit that Bill's giving him. So now well, if he's going to take it, everyone else is going to take it, right? Mm-hmm. And he did it for so long. And I would think like the first couple of years, people came here to win championships, to play with Bill and Tom. From like 2006 on, they came to play with Tom because they didn't win. They didn't win anything from 2004 to 2014. So they were just trying to get people there, and they could do it. And Tom would say, "Listen, I'll take a pay cut. You come here, we'll win." Bill never took a pay cut. Bill got paid more and more every year. So the Patriot way was
coach's money, though. I mean,
GM, he's $25 million a year. There's not been one player on the Patriots team in the last 10 years that has made more than him. You cannot say that about any other NFL organization. You can't.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But he kind of earned it. Is my only point. Like he kind of did earn it,
But then he never found.
No, now in retrospect, I know that the value is falling. The value on this money is falling off as time goes on. I get that, but that's what happens with these contracts in football. You know what I mean? Like you're front loading the value.
Here's what I know: the Patriot way never worked with any of the assistants when they went elsewhere, and only worked here when Bill and Tom were together. So once Tom left, the Patriot way was gone.
Are you 100% sure that wasn't? And I understand what you're saying, where it's like if that system was so tried and true, like Belichick would have a coaching tree as successful as Andy Reid's or Bill Parcells or
or even fucking Mike Holmgren's.
Yeah, or Bill
Andy Reid is from the Mike Holmgren coaching tree.
Sure. So I wonder though, is it also true? And this is why I was talking about nuance with you in the chat. It's like, is it also true though that there's guys that belong as offensive or defensive coordinators or special teams coaches or whatever that role is, and they're not cut out to be head coaches? And could it also be true that this Patriot way is a system that does exist and does work, but it could only be implemented by a man with a very specific personality and a very specific set of values about the game of football? Because that to me reads like what it was. Or like, I mean, I understand you positing this because I've never thought about it the way that you're presenting it, to be honest. What I always thought was, Yeah, because he's basically spent the majority of his coaching career doing favors for pals of his and letting their idiot sons like walk into his coordinator room, and he just has the confidence to sort of put the whole thing together. Now, obviously, that blew up in his face in a major way last year because you can only go so far with that when you're putting certain people out, not mentioning any names, in the offensive coordinator role when he wasn't even good as a defensive coordinator. So that seems like not really the move. But like, I guess to not belabor the point too much, I just always thought, yeah, well, of course, Josh McDaniels can't do that because when he's in daddy's office, he's really good at drawing. And wow, your art is so good. Like, way to go. And then when you try to go to art school, everyone's like, I don't know who told you this was good, but it fucking isn't. And it was all Belichick being a mastermind. I mean, I know that they're two kind of extremes of the same question, but that's just how I always thought about it. It's like, you're so lucky to work for that guy. You weren't even smart enough to take his fucking take what you learned there and like apply it somewhere else.
I think both things can be true, right? The Patriot way could only work like in New England because, in my opinion, Bill never had to worry about the offense because he had a guy like Brady that would stand it up regardless of the offensive coordinator there. And all he had to do was keep putting wrinkles in the defense. And every single year he would iterate off that. The assistant coaches that left couldn't figure out the personnel on the offensive side of the ball. They never had the same quarterback as, Tom Brady. That's obviously hard to do. But then they also could not do the defense. So it would always fall apart. But I think, in my humble opinion, that we, myself included, overhyped the Patriot way because we just assumed that Bill had built this offensive and defensive scheme that would work, and Tom was helping it.
But he did. Though. Like, the thing is like that's the thing.
Charlie Weiss built it. That was a Charlie Weiss, Bill Parcells offense. Yeah, the offense.
No, but like I mean, I get that on some level, but there was things that Bill Belichick, if we're talking about just the offense, like if we're putting to the side that we agree that he had a pretty much foolproof defensive system like in place that he would just add these wrinkles to, like you said, and he would add like very specific personnel that he would like kind of work around and like make the Gerard Mayos of the world like one of the best at their position because he asked him to do this very specific job. And I think we agree that he had a great mind for that. And I pay extra special close attention to the defensive side of the ball because that was what I think the culture of my team should be as well. And I think, or like has been in the past, and I think should continue to be. And that's the side of the ball I always want my team to be good, to be honest. And like, I was always jealous of your edge rushers. I was always jealous of your secondary more than anybody. I was always jealous of the guys you had playing the safety positions, because I thought that since the Ed Reeds, the early 2000s Ravens of the world, like, and with obvious exceptions being like the Steelers and Troy Polamalu, but they kind of ran in a very different way. I really like this sort of hard hitting, always finish your tackles style, stop the run support style of the safeties that the Patriots always had. Like, they weren't always necessarily like ball hawks. They weren't getting like crazy interceptions and pick sixes, but it was like, if you get to the guy and you're going to tackle him, it's going to be in the open field and you're going to have to finish that tackle, and they always would, and they would always hit hard, and they would maybe they force a fumble, whatever it was. But I was just like that. And that was that do your job approach, right? What I'm saying is he definitely built, in the same sense, a very unique offensive game plan, especially during the peak years of not even Randy Moss, but like for me, the best offense, because it resulted in championships that I ever watched that you guys had was the combination of Welker and Gronk and some sort of serviceable running back to like support Brady. And I think then you had like, wide receiver 2s and wide receiver 3s around, that maybe one year to be Hogan, maybe another year to be Edelman, like all these, that kind of configuration. There was a thing we were just talking about recently. You were automatic in the red zone. Like, I've never seen anything like it. Like that. This is the biggest problem that almost every team in the NFL has right now. Even the good ones, they suck in the fucking red zone. So this is it feels like every team that gets down into the red zone, no matter if they're good or bad, there's like, well, I don't know, Mike, they've been struggling with some red zone this year. Let's look at the statistics. And it's like, that's the issue that so many teams had, and you guys were automatic at it. Like Wes Welker would just stand in the slot and then turn towards Tom Brady, catch the ball, and walk it in. And there was for some reason, nothing anyone could do about it. I don't know why or how. Like, nobody could figure it out. Nobody could leap or time the play. or that like back shoulder he had, like, or just hitting Gronk over the middle because he's so much bigger than everybody else. Like, you were automatic in the fucking red zone. And that was a unique style of offense. There was no one else that would have had Danny Woodhead producing at the level that Danny Woodhead was producing. It's just not, he wouldn't have been as good on any other team in the era that he was in his athletic prime. It's just a fact. Like, I wouldn't hear an argument against that. So, I mean, it's a fact I can't prove, but I'm really sure. And I think you agree. So it's like, come on, man. Like, he got a lot out of like, what? All right, fine. Maybe you can have criticisms of some of his X's and O's being coming from like one of the better built, East Coast offenses in the history of the league. I can see that. But what about his man management? What about his interpersonal, like making players better? What about spotting talent in areas that, this all happened? I watched it. So it's like, we can't do revisionist history on Bill Belichick because he aged out, bro. I'm really sure that's what happened. Like, I just think the league left him behind a little bit. And it's like, he stuck around for like a couple years too long, maybe, like maybe chasing that wins record. And now it's sad. Now it's fucking sad. And I don't like it because I respect greatness. And I'm not even a Pats fan. And I'm on the fucking MTV Boston defending Bill Belichick. This is absurd.
But, well, just the offensive prowess of Bill Belichick, because the reason why I would say is, how come there was none of that pre-Brady in Cleveland or even here, and there's been none of it post-Brady?
Because there's no level of magic that you can possess, and no level of skill of coaching that you can possess to make the Cleveland Browns a good football team. We've just seen that. They're cursed. There's no iteration of people, mere mortals, that can come in and make that franchise anything more than also rans, because it's Cleveland. You know what I mean? It just is. And I mean, you could say the same thing about when he was an assistant coach, though. You could, but in the opposite direction. It's like, well, I mean, he had success as an assistant coach working for the guys that he worked for and like moving up in the world there. And he was obviously like a great football mind, like that got these kind of promotions up through the ranks. It doesn't just happen, except it does sometimes, but it didn't happen with him.
So 2000, they're 5-11, the exact same personnel comes back the next year, but there's just one thing that happens. Bledsoe gets hurt, they're 11-5. I'm going to wash the COVID year and say that they were 12-4 in Brady's last year, and then they're 10-7 the year after.
What
COVID.
about the 11-win Matt Castle season? Does he get credit for that?
Oh, you mean with the 18-1 roster
that he put together?
So 7 less wins. 7 less wins without one guy.
Okay. Can I ask you honestly, do you think that you were going to go 18-1 again that following year, or were you prepared to win less games anyway? Regardless.
Just for the purpose of this argument, let's just say that all things are equal and that they could have got 18.
Yeah, that works out really well for you. I would posit that with the eye test, we all watched Matt Castle do the best Tom Brady impression of that era that we had ever seen, and it was on that same team because he reintegrated into that system. Are we now saying that fact that we all agreed upon at the time, that Matt Castle was able to walk in there and do a serviceable job as a probably average to mediocre quarterback, if we're really being honest, do a serviceable job and take them to 11 wins and got fucked by the seeding and the Chargers making it in by winning their lousy division with fucking 9 wins or whatever it was. And that we all agreed at the time that was because the system was so flawless that one of us could walk in there and do a serviceable Tom Brady impression for a regular season of, at the time, 16 games. We're just saying that wasn't the case. That was just because the rest of the team was so good. It was no longer Bill. I don't buy it. We all agreed. I was there. I didn't love it. I thought you were going to have a terrible season that season. You didn't. So riddle me that. Riddle me that, Michael.
Yeah, you got me on the 11-5.
I didn't want to bring it up, but you forced my hand because you started hitting me with all these numbers and I get very confused very easily. Listen, I just think
a couple more numbers though.
Sure.
This year they're 2-7. They're taking on the 4-5 Colts in Germany. That 9:30 special, 6:30 your time.
That's a home game for them though, because I heard a rumor that when they first got the NFL over in Germany, it was all the Pats winning the tons of fucking games here. So like the biggest concentration of fans in Germany are Pats fans, and German fans are great at going to sports. Like they'll be loud. So
German are Pats fans, and they were Brady fans, which is why the NFL made sure that Brady got there last year.
That's great.
So
we love that. We love
they're
that.
they're going to play the Gardner Minshew led Colts who are 4-5.
I like the Pats in this game.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Is it just because you know that I don't like them?
No, because I think that Belichick's breaking up the season into winnable streaks. I think that Commanders loss was a hit because I think what he really wanted to do was probably lose to the Dolphins, but then rattle off 3 wins in a row. Commanders, Colts, Giants. I think if you get 2 out of 3 on that run, you now put yourself in a position where you have to look down the stretch of your schedule and think about what the winnable games are. Are they the Jets or the Bills because they're your divisional rivals, so you can make that game?
Definitely the Jets.
Definitely the Jets, but also the Bills. It's the second to last game of the season. I was probably hoping that the Bills were doing a little bit better by the time because they'll probably have to play their starter in that game.
Yeah.
But you will also play the Broncos right before that. That's a very winnable game. They will be in full tank mode by that point. Actually, I don't even think they have their fucking picks, so maybe not, but it doesn't matter. You should be able to beat the Broncos, the Giants, and the Colts. That's 3 wins right there. Now, your more challenging games are the Chargers, the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Bills, and kind of the Jets, but not really. You got to win 1 game you're not supposed to win. That's all you got to do. You got to win 3 games you're supposed to win and 1 game you're not supposed to win.
They already did that, and they won the game that they weren't supposed to win against the Bills at home here at Gillette. They've lost.
What's to say you can't beat them again? What's to say you can't beat them again?
No, I guess not. It would take 45-mile-an-hour winds for the entire game, and Mac only having to throw 2 passes. But they've lost all the games they were supposed to win. They should have not lost to the fucking Raiders or the Saints.
I know.
So, or the fucking Commanders, who are also, by the way, in tank mode.
Yeah, I didn't understand it at all because they traded away their 2 best defensive assets the day before, basically. And like I found out about the Sweat trade from you. Like you texted me that, hey, and I like looked at it in the morning and I was like, holy shit, that's a big asset that we went and just got. That's good news, I think. But then they went and won their game, so that was really weird. It was like,
right,
like are the Patriots tanking? No, you're saying they're not. They're still trying to win games.
I don't think that I don't think that Bill has enough hold over the locker room anymore that if he told them to tank or tried to, that they would actually listen. I don't think that this team, if you're tanky, why do you beat the Bills?
Yeah, I don't know. That's weird.
Because I was on this show and I said, I listened to you and Bobby do the power rankings later that week. Like, hey, now you're 2-5. You beat the Bills, and now you got the Dolphins. If you get to 3-5 with being 3-1 in the division, and then you have the Commanders and the Colts, if you get to the bye week at 5-5, it's a full season.
Yeah, you basically did the worst possible thing you could do after that Bills win by losing either the Dolphins or the Commanders game. You had to win one of those 2 games, and like the likely one was probably going to be the Commanders, but you didn't take them up on their offer to lose to you. So that's unfortunate. But because then you can rattle off the thing I'm talking about, where you can say, okay, Colts, Giants are such winnable games. We can go win those games. But now it's like, well, you might as well not win those games, right? Is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. If you want so now you're in the situation where do you want a top 10 pick? Because if you're going to get a top 10 pick, maybe 7 and 10 is still top 10, but or if you want to make the playoffs, if you want to make the playoffs,
7 and 10 probably. There's a lot of terrible teams. There's a lot.
The Patriots have to go 7-1 to finish with a winning record.
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
No,
unfortunately, because of their schedule. I don't think you're going to beat the Chargers. But you know what? The Chargers lose to everybody. I keep saying the Chargers are good because I think that they have like a lot of really good personnel, but they keep losing games, except to the Bears. But there's just been fucking hemorrhaging fucking games, like in every chance that they get. So you might actually be able to go on a 3-game winning streak. And then all of a sudden, what position are you in? Because you've got 5 wins.
Now you're 5-7.
Now you're 5-7, and you're going to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers in December. That's going to be a tough ask. I think that's going to be maybe the worst game of the season to watch, just based on those 2 teams.
Oh, that's going to be such an offensive showcase, dude. I don't know why I want to watch that.
And then you're going to lose to the Chiefs. And then you're going to beat the Broncos. And then at that point, you're 6-9. And then you pull the win out to the Bills and the Jets. You're 8-9. You're 8-9. You could get into the playoffs.
No, no,
Probably not.
no,
Probably
no.
eight,
No,
eight
all
or
right, so-
nine though.
so-
Like if you're 8 and 9, aren't you sitting here going like, all right, there's a lot more positives than I thought. If you
No,
get to
I'm-
8 and 9,
No, I'm sitting here saying we have another year of this because it's just like the NBA. You don't want to be in that little purgatory. You
Yeah,
either
you're
want to
right.
be in top
Yeah, you're
5
so
or the
right.
bottom fucking 5.
Or you can be an 8 and 9 team if all your guys are like on their rookie contracts and you've like just started building the team.
Right.
And it's like, oh, this is great. We won 8 wins
Right.
with like the youngest team like ever. Yeah, we can do it that way.
Not
But
after you just
otherwise,
signed
yeah.
Devontae Parker and Juju Smith-Schuster to a combined 3-year, let's call it like $55 million contract. You don't wanna do
I
that.
think that's fine if you like improve your wide receiver room. I think those guys can like definitely do a job. They're just not able to do the jobs you're asking them to do, you know?
Right.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, you're definitely it does kind of make my brain constrict talking about the Patriots because it's like they really are like just going 1,000 miles an hour to the middle of the road. And it's like you got to pick one. Like you got to win like basically the rest of your games. And if you don't think you can do that, then like you got to lose the rest of your games. And that's such a tough fucking spot to be in. You know, it really is. That being said, like I don't know, maybe they have somebody up their sleeve in like the later first round that they think will like drop to them, like and they just think that their defensive core is good enough that they want to just try to win every single game and not just lose the morale of the locker room. Like it's not worth it. Like they, you know, maybe they think they have competitors on the defensive side of the ball to the point where it would be doing them a disservice. So they have to try to get them, you know, just to elevate them and keep them kind of, you know, on side and wanting to be here. Maybe they just think they have winners in that side and they have such losers on the other fucking side that it's like impossible. I don't know. I'm sorry, man. It sucks. I've been here. I have. It's not great.
You gave me that after a motivational speech about how you think they're going to beat the Colts. I think that they're going to
I
lose.
do
by
think they're
10
going to
to
beat the Colts, but I think no, that's my whole point is I think they're going to beat the Colts and I think that that's a bad thing for you. Like that's like my whole point. It's like they're going to beat the Colts and they shouldn't. They should lose to the Colts if they know it's good for them, but they're probably not going because the Colts are awful, by the way. Have you watched them? They're bad.
They just got Jonathan Taylor back.
We'll see. I mean,
so I'm going to ask you this question. It's going to sound like a douchey dick question to ask, so I apologize, but I promise you it's not. How do you walk the fine line of still rooting for your team, like to win, but knowing that they're just not good enough to? Because that's where I'm at. Like
I have the answer.
Ray is all like, fuck them, hope they lose, but I can't get behind that.
That's a coping mechanism, obviously, right? Like
Yeah.
I've done that coping mechanism in my life with various teams, and like it works a little bit actually. But I have the answer. What you do is you still hope for them to win, and you just also have the Carolina Panthers first round pick, and then can you guys sort that out somehow? If you're able to do that, and you just watch the Carolina Panthers lose every single week, then you can be like, fuck it. I'll take like the 6th or 7th pick with the Bears. Like, just try to win. Show me something. Show me those linebackers you got are like decent. Let's see what Montez Sweat has to offer. Like, maybe the secondary is improving. Like, let's get better week on week. Like, let's see how Justin Fields is. But like, it doesn't matter because the Carolina Panthers are going to lose out. So that's the best position to be in with a team that's kind of like not so good and not so bad. Like, I don't think the Bears, for example, are one of the worst 3 teams in the NFL, just like overall. Like, I think I could name 5 at least teams that I would be confident the Bears could beat, right? On a given day. But they're not even close to the top 10. You know, they're in that horrible little hell. But the nice thing, we have these 2 picks. You know, like that's the nice thing kind of coming down the pipe. Also, I'm in a similar position to you. I don't have a definitive answer on my QB. You know, I want to believe that he's good, and I want to believe the moments I've seen of him be really good are what he is, but I've also seen him be really bad. But I don't know if he's been in the right coaching environment or had the right. I know he's got DJ Moore this year, so the excuses are lessening, but I get it. You know, the only thing that I have that you don't have is I can decide this year on Justin Fields, and you can't really decide this year on Mac Jones. Like, if Justin Fields doesn't come back and throw a great remainder of the season, akin to, you know, 2 or 3 of the games he's played this season as opposed to the other ones, then we can just be like, fuck it. Like, we got to go get a QB with that high pick. But you guys are unfortunately like a season or 2 away from really being able to assess that. So it's tough. I have things to be excited about. You know, that's the difference. So
One thing I wanted to run by you, it's not really MTP Boston, but you're here, I'm here, so why not run it by you? I said to Ray back week 2, one thing that would, if I were the Bears, and if I was not 1000% sold that Justin Fields was my guy, I would trade him to Atlanta for whatever picks that they'll, like a first or a second, or maybe a first and a second if they'll do it. For 2 reasons: you get more draft capital for the Bears, but also because I do think that Justin Fields in Atlanta would be ridiculous. Like that is the team. That is a team tailor made for a quarterback that can make plays. You got a stud running back, what should be a stud tight end, and a pretty damn good wide receiver in Drake London. I think he would do well there. I mean, because I'm rooting for him. As you know, I smashed a keyboard in the 2021 draft when I saw that you guys traded up for him because I wanted him here, and I think that puts both him and you in a much better spot.
yeah, I guess it would be unfortunate now that we've started to spend to start over like that kind of aggressively, like this season especially. Um, I still, I'm kind of, I think the whole Tyson Bagent thing is kind of throwing me for a little bit of a loop because it's like he didn't have a good game by any stretch of the imagination on Sunday, but against the Saints. But in watching him play, I'm like, oh, I think there might be like the nugget of something there that like somebody might be able to actually turn into like somebody who is like kind of a gamer. And I would like kind of like to see now at this point how that plays out, which is like unfortunate because it looks like Fields is like healthy again. Obviously, ideal world, he just comes back in and lights it up for the remainder of the season, and like we're good. We just like lock in our choice at quarterback. But now it's like you have this third wrinkle where I might be encouraged to do what you're saying because you have this Tyson Bagent character who essentially is as much of a gamble as Fields at this point, right? Like you're kind of rolling the dice on either one of them at this point. Like probably Fields has had more good games than Tyson Bagent, but I think Tyson Bagent could put together a couple good games and like wins. You know, I think he might have the right attitude and like skill set. So now it's like maybe you gotta kind of decide on one. So if we did trade Fields and sort of just saw where Bagent goes for the remainder of the season, if we want to get another QB, great. But I don't know, man. I don't think it's fair to Justin Fields. I just don't think we've seen like I just want to see like a whole season with him and DJ Moore. By the time he got hurt, I was still undecided. So I just want to see the rest of the season out with Fields. Trading him in the offseason, it'll be a little less valuable, but yeah, I mean there might be some at that point. I think you assess at that point. I wouldn't do it right now. I'll say that
because then in the offseason, like your rebuild comes in the form of either Drake May or Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. accompanying.
And also there's a
DJ
couple
Moore.
more teams. Yeah, exactly. And there's a couple more teams that maybe know that their guy isn't the guy and they want to try out Justin Fields. Like I would be interested to see what Geno Smith looks like for the rest of the year because he hasn't quite looked the same as he did last year. And I think if we're talking about fits for Fields, I think that Seattle would be like a pipe dream, like number one best option for him based on what Geno Smith looked like when he was good. I think Fields has a bigger arm. I think he's better on his feet. And I think that Geno Smith might be able to read the game a little bit better than him, but he's just looked weird this season. So they might be out on him by the end of the year, depending on how the remainder of their season goes. So, you could maybe get some real capital off of Seattle that way. Like if Tyler Lockett came back our way or something like that, that'd be nice, but we'll see.
Yep.
But yeah, I would do it in the offseason.
All right, out of the rabbit hole and out of the despair, let's talk about the best team in the NBA, in my opinion, the Boston Celtics, 5-0. They're obviously we're recording this on the Monday night, so they're playing Minnesota right now. We won't have the final outcome of that game.
They're up 55-52 right now in the second quarter. It's almost over.
So let's just talk about the things we know about. They blew out Indiana, put up 155 points last week. In what I thought was going to be their biggest test in last week's string of games. So are they better than you thought they were going to be at this point, TK?
No, I mean, I wouldn't say that they're, I would say it might still be too soon to tell how good they actually are, to be honest. I kind of don't want to get my hopes up too crazy. Like I was on record with Ray in the first in the last preview I did with him of the Celtics coming into the season, and we were about to tip off the season, and I was like 82-0 is my prediction, lock it in. I doubled down on it in the next show that I did with him, and it's like still alive and well as the time time of recording. It's we're 5-0, and there's been things as much better or worse is not what I would. Were not the adjectives I would use to describe it. they're different than I thought they were going to be. They look different than I thought they were going to look coming into the season. Specifically, the Kristaps Porzingis element of it. Like, I didn't think I was going to see a 7-footer like blocking 3-point shots on the perimeter. You know, like I did not think that his level of dominance across the first 5 games that he's been able to like sort of put together with seemingly minimal effort to like integrate into the team has been the thing that has impressed me the most. Additionally, I've also said this to Ray, but I'm not sure we've talked about it. Like, my number one dream, pie in the sky, like, don't think it'll ever happen choice for who our primary defensive guard would be, instead of Marcus Smart, because it wouldn't have been Marcus Smart. Spoiler alert, it was Drew Holiday. Like, he is my favorite point guard, and we went and got him, and I'm just so in like La La Land, like watching them play. Like, I look forward to their games so much because they're so much fun to watch. And I think that the thing that I really didn't expect, as far as like my expectations, the theme of your question being my expectations versus the reality of them across 5.5 games, is how much better Jaylen Brown would be with a lower usage rate, and how they've figured it out that he is so incredibly effective and lethal. And really, I think, his percentages are all just so much better with less need for him to move the ball, right? And I'm not going to buy into the like, oh yeah, because he can't dribble with his left hand or whatever. And I'm not saying we've turned him into a spot up jump shooter, but what we have stopped doing, at least across these first 5 games, in a very intelligent and mature way, we've stopped asking Jaylen Brown to pick the ball up when the play is dead and try to improvise something, because that's really not his game. Like, I think you need to get him into a rhythm. I think you need to get his shooting going early. And I think that you have to switch him off like primary defenders and let him bully people with his athleticism. We're able to do that now because they have so many other fucking things to worry about with us on the offensive side of the ball. And he's just able to, like, I think Jaylen Brown's game is he's a flat track bully. I think like if you mismatch someone on him, he fucking murders them. And I love that about his game, but you can't keep, like, the way the teams were beating us last year, especially Miami, is like funnel him into the zone with like 2 little crafty guards just poking at his hands and like trying to get him to, and it's like, it worked. And that turned into, oh, Jaylen Brown sucks at dribbling, oh, this, that, and the other. And I'm like, well, I think that we just went up against, and I think you'll agree with me here, Mike, because this is like kind of the drum you've been banging since we started this whole shindig. I think you come up against the Eric Spoelstras of the world, and they're like, okay, how do I get Jaylen Brown out of his rhythm? Like, how do I not get killed by Jaylen Brown? Because like, that's what you're thinking about going into these games against these, elite teams in the playoffs. So all that being said, I think we built strength on strength, which is the way that you win championships. Like, we saw the good things that we had last season, and instead of saying like, let's go after like our weak points, like, oh, we don't have a ton of bench depth over here, we don't have this, we don't have that. It's like, let's just get even fucking better at the things we're already good at, like scoring, like shooting, like going to the rim at will, like stretching the floor, like being longer at every position than every other team. And we can figure out the stuff that we have to figure out down the road. Now, would I still be worried in playoffs? This is why I have to mitigate this stuff, because would I still be worried in playoff scenarios about Al Horford getting switched on to guards if we're still like switching everything defensively? Yes. Am I worried about the bench depth? Yes. So yeah, I'm on cloud 9 right now, and they are probably better, different, whatever word you want to use, than I expected. But I'm still reticent because I know there's still problems. There's a chance, though. There's a chance that those problems, they're so good 1 through 6 that the problems just don't matter. And like that I think is the most exciting thing. It's like, yeah, sure, whatever. We're going to have 150 on the board by the fucking middle of the fourth quarter. So we're all going to sit down. So it doesn't matter what the bench is doing. But yeah, relying on Luke Cornett and Payton Pritchard, not ideal. But will it matter? Who knows?
I mean, so my big thing about JB has been in the last couple of years is it became like that, to your point. You knew how to beat them. Force him to drive up in the lane, because they had no one else besides Tatum on the perimeter that they were worried about killing them, and they could just collapse around him.
Yeah, the Warriors did it to us.
Yeah, Porzingis does not allow an opposing team to do that anymore. Because if you leave him untouched on the perimeter, he'll kill you.
The fact that he can kill you from anywhere, he can score at all 3 levels.
Right.
He can kill you from anywhere is the craziest thing. It really is bananas to watch.
What I wasn't counting on, though, to your point, was Porzingis' defensive game. Though, I mean, I thought that he was just this big, big fucking guy that could shoot and score and would not press it defensively. But what we've seen through the first 5.5 games is that he's willing to play. Like he will play all aspects of the game. And if he stays healthy and everyone in the perfect world stays healthy, I think our top 6 is good enough to make up for our lack of depth. I think it is.
I still do think we're going to do something, but I'm inclined to agree with you. Like just based on what we've seen so far. I mean, there'll be slumps, like they happen every season. But like, guys will be banged up as it's a long season as it goes. I don't really want any of our guys playing more than 70 games, to be honest. I know there's this whole new load management, like, anti-load management rule, but I think you can figure that out. I think you can max out on that. Al Horford even less, to be honest. But I think 72 games is the ideal amount of regular season games for getting into rhythm as an NBA player. And I think we play the extra 10 for money and gate and, NBA League Pass subscriptions. So, because it's basically another month, right? How it averages out across. It's like they're just adding a month to the regular season. So whatever. I know you got to get your bread up. It is what it is. But we do need to wrap these guys in cotton wool if we're gonna decide to go like that heavy handed in our front 6, in our top 6, I mean, and just not really worry about our bench, but I would love to still see the Posey or Poe like guys come into the world in the Celtics realm. I think they are probably out there. I had this dream the other night that we got Marcus Morris Sr. back, and I was like really happy about it in my dream. But I think he might be too old now, so we'll see. I don't know. We need to get some presence on the bench. I think it's a lack of presence that worries me, to be honest. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, Ray brought this up last week, and I'm glad that you just mentioned that too. Is maybe a couple months throughout the season, you can convince Blake Griffin to come back, because I do think that he loved it here, and the players loved him too. Yeah,
I liked having him a lot. Yeah.
Because I don't know what he gives you defensively, but he does give you someone on the bench that apparently now he's a 38% 3-point shooter, which has been wild.
Yeah,
and you do that, but if
Dwight Howard, like just go get some names that like used to. Yeah, no,
Dwight just reeks of loser though.
You think? I like the second iteration of him. I like the current, like the new iteration of Dwight, like the skinny kind of like helper outer.
2020, I mean, championship Dwight Howard was that's good, right? He was on the Lakers team that won.
Yeah. Yep. He's a weirdo. No, I'll give you that. He is a fucking weirdo. Like I'm not denying that, but we might just be good enough like at the top that, because like I like JT and JB, and mainly JT, like being the leader of this team now. Like I think that the Marcus Smart leader vacuum thing was true. Like I think you can already see it. See it. Like, and Marcus's like attitude being what it was like good for us for a long time, and like I think it did help us more than hurt us over the years, but it was time. It was time. Like you have to, if you're Jason Tatum, you have to decide to be the leader of this team at this point. Otherwise you're never going to be seen that way ever. It's just the way it is. So I think them recognizing that, being smart and mature enough to bring in Van Gundy and Sam Cassell and all these guys to just basically like help build this culture up for this push to essentially win a championship. Because if this iteration of this team doesn't win a championship, it's a massive failure. Like it is one of the all-time like building of a team failures that like anyone's ever seen. So getting in those old heads and getting in those calm voices and trying to get Joe Mazzulla up to speed with the responsibility that he has, I think is probably more important than like going to get a Blake Griffin or a Dwight Howard or any of those guys. But I think that because we have that in place, and I do believe it, we can go get whoever the fuck we want and just fill out that bench with some men and some maybe some veteran minimums and like that kind of thing. Guys who have won before, though, I do agree with you. Like guys who have maybe are just not up to NBA quality when it comes down the stretch of the season, but like they've been there, they've won, and they'd be great in a suit in the playoffs. Like the Brian Scalabrine, Sam Cassells of the world. But we have Sam Cassell there, so that's positive.
I mean, I also want them to not do anything to mess up this new evolution of Derek White, because I mean,
Derek 2.0. Yeah,
I don't know if that's what's doing it, but he's so fucking confident this year, dude, and you can see it. Everything about his game is better.
It's definitely the hair. It's got to be.
But Ray mostly when he first came over here was like, this guy could be a really important player, and it turns out he really fucking is, especially when he plays confidently.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was the thing, I think, as much as I absolutely agree that Ray was the first one to call out Derek White being a great pickup. I think I was the loudest last season when he wasn't on the floor in crunch time and wasn't getting substantial minutes, like just was not getting substantial minutes by any stretch of the imagination to get him into a good rhythm to be in crunch time. So, and that just drove me fucking bananas because I think he's like, essentially, I think that how good Marcus Smart was at defense was like a little bit of a myth. And I think that like maybe the year he won Defensive Player of the Year, yeah, I think he was producing defensively at a high level, but I think really why he won that is because his general percentages just like went up across the board. Like it was almost a most improved player award 2.0. All while, producing at a high level defensively, sure. But I think watching Derek White play defense, watching Drew Holiday play defense, there's nothing I'm like out and out missing about what Marcus Smart was doing here, So seeing him not, and I'm going to get back to the point about Derek White's confidence because he builds from there. He builds from his being able to move the ball, being able to be the one in control. He needs minutes to be effective. And like we all already knew that in the playoffs last year. So almost the best thing we've done is clear out the guards to give Derek White the role that he has right now and trust him with this responsibility. And it's paying dividends because he's clearly good. But yeah, he needs to be trusted by his teammates. He needs to be heard by his teammates. He's one of those guys. Like his confidence can go, like he is a confidence player. So trust him, give him the moment, like let him shine when he's going to shine. When it's his turn on a given night, let him go off, I think that seems to be the strategy here with everybody. Yeah. Is Jason Tatum probably going to be your top scorer night in and out? For sure. But like, who wants to come along for the ride tonight? Drew Holiday's like, yeah, I'll do it. Double. At the other night, it's like, and I'll drop 10 assists too. Just like fuck around and find out. And I think Derek White and Drew Holiday complement each other better than Marcus Smart and like anyone Marcus Smart's ever played with because I just think he thinks everyone else sucks. So I just like I like the guard room so much better now. I really do. It's leaner, it's meaner, it's just better. Even with Pritchard being a higher priority choice and not being able to score points in the NBA.
That's Bobby's like rookie of the year right there. It's like don't harp on him too much.
That was a long time ago now, if we're being honest. Like I feel like he needs to start doing.
It was also like a 4-game stretch when he averaged 18 points and Bobby was like, I told you.
He's so good. He's so good like his rookie year playing for 5 minutes. He's so good in the fucking summer league. He's so good in the preseason, but when it comes down to it, it's like no. And also like the playoffs, like what are you gonna are we really saying there's no way we're not gonna make moves? Are we really saying we're gonna let Payton Pritchard play meaningful minutes against the Miami Heat? Did you see what Jimmy Butler did to him? Like Jimmy Butler was like licking his fucking lips when Payton Pritchard would come on the floor. He's like, I'm gonna absolutely skin this mule. This is gonna be so much fucking fun. He was borderline insulted when we let Payton Pritchard switch on him that he would like just make him look ridiculous. I'm surprised Payton Pritchard can leave his house after the Miami series when he saw any fucking minutes on the floor. Jimmy Butler just made him his bitch. So I just can't quite fathom. Like, I do think we could probably beat Miami by 30 points a game, but like, again, it's the playoffs, it's Miami. Like, let's set ourselves up for success,
Right. This upcoming week, obviously, Minnesota tonight, but then they get Philly, Brooklyn, and Toronto. Who on that slate this week worries you the most?
I think if this was last year, I would probably say Brooklyn or Toronto would be like higher on my list of worries because we like to banana skin games against teams like that. But this year we seem to be beating the teams we need to beat effectively and early and like not letting them back in the game. And I think that a lot of that's down to like the improvements across the board in the coaching areas, not necessarily head coach, but we've like definitely supplied him with a backroom staff that I think is giving the right advice to the team because they seem to just be making less boneheaded decisions in situations where we're way better than the team we're playing. I would just go with probably, I'd be interested to hear your answer too, but I would probably just go with the obvious answer. I mean, I think the Sixers are the best of those 3 teams that we're going to play. I know that we always make them our bitch, et cetera, but like getting James Harden out of there, I know that they're probably not in anybody's mind for a championship run, the Sixers at this point. They need to re-trust the process and start the process over and try to give Embiid some guys to really work with. But yeah, I mean, that's the hardest game. Like that's the game that we're probably statistically most likely to lose. And I I don't think we're doing that thing anymore where we get cute when we're playing the Brooklyns of the world and we fucking lose, or the Clevelands of the world. And I think we saw that playing the Knicks in the first game of the season. Like, they beat our asses for the entirety of last season, and we just didn't let that happen this time. Maybe it's because it was tip off. I don't know, but we were like, nah, we're not letting that shit happen. So yeah, it's probably the Sixers, man. I'd say that's the game I'm the most worried about and the most interested in, because I really can't wait to see what Kristaps versus Joel looks like. Even if we just quiet Joel down, and that means that Kristaps is like not even a factor offensively because his whole day is just spent like trying to fuck with Joel Embiid. I'm fine with that, because watching him pull up from anywhere he wanted on Rob Williams last year was in the playoffs was very upsetting. And I know he won that series, but it was a very frustrating series to watch, if you remember, like very frustrating series, because we should have been beating them. We should have 4-0'd them. Honestly, we really should have. And it was like pretty unacceptable that we lost the games that we lost in the manner that we did. So I'd like to go out there and beat their asses, to be honest.
Well, I mean, last year, the most frustrating part about that was that we knew that Horford could shut Embiid down. All Doc did was just switch Horford onto Harden
every time.
Every single
time.
Position.
And then we just didn't do anything about it. We just did nothing about it every time. And Harden just killed. And it was like, well, it's James Harden isn't as good as he used to be. It's like, he's still killing Al Horford from the perimeter, dude. What the fuck? Come on, man. Like, this is basic shit. And it doesn't seem like we're fucking up the basic shit as much. So I would like to see what that looks like, to be honest.
They did cleanse that locker room. And I think that Philly came out, much better without Harden. They get rid of Doc. Who good coach. I've been banging that drum for
great commentator. I fucking love him and Doris. Holy
he's
shit.
So good. He's
what
a
revelation the commentary in the NBA has been this year. I love that they just cleaned house and they were like, fuck it, we're gonna get a bunch of people that are like, we think are really good at this. Because like Doris had a little dry run and she was great. She does have a tendency sometimes to like be a little Philadelphia friendly and like East Coast friendly in general, because of like her background, but that can't be helped. I would probably do the same shit. I would basically be Tommy Heinsohn out there, so I can't really fucking talk. But I just love them. Like, I just love that she really respects the game of basketball, and she's really impressed with high level basketball plays. And like, Doc will say shit and it'll come true, and you like learn about the game from a guy who knows a shitload about the game, and I think he's eloquent and he sounds great. I'm so in love with that commentary team. I've really been enjoying it. I can't wax lyrical enough about the two of them. So much better than Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. I know Van Gundy's our guy now, so I'll defend him to the death, but still.
Was he the one that you hated whenever he spoke? Or was that the other? Was that the other Van Gundy?
Stan was my least favorite.
Yeah.
Stan speak on basketball was like, I don't understand. This guy's forgotten more about basketball than I'm ever going to know. But he sounds like a fifth grader just drawing out his commentary in crayon when he speaks. I don't know what's happening. But as a fellow member of the Mustache Club, I'll defend him to the death too. But I think, he really drove me.
Embiid and Maxey, like that is an intriguing combo, because Maxey he's sliced us up every time he's played us, like the last 2 years.
He's good. I've always liked him. I've really always liked him. It's just that they're still so unbalanced. Like we still just like what's their answer to us on the wings? Like they still have never been able to, like, at least Milwaukee would be like, all right, here's Chris Middleton. He's gonna at least disrupt, one of the two of you. Like, oh, Miami can switch Jimmy Butler on you guys. Like, we'll make either JB or JT like chase Tyler Hero all series, like just run after them for the whole series so that they're not as effective offensively. Like the Golden State Warriors of the world had like, Jordan Poole like going around screens. There's nobody on Philadelphia that should be able to do that to us in the wings, but yet still we find ourselves in dumb switches with them all the time and like letting them take away our best offensive weapons. And I just want to see a little coaching maturity playing against them. I agree with you about him beating Maxey, but they shouldn't be able to beat us with just those two guys, is my point.
Last thing before we get out of here. Are you more impressed with Missoula this year, or do you think that he's just surrounded by much better talent, so we're not seeing a bunch of his mistakes? And it feels like he hasn't been put in a position where he could royally fuck up a game for us yet, but to his credit, he hasn't,
It's, I think, still too soon to tell. Like you're kind of intimating, like, yes, he could still definitely be put in that position to fuck things up. I want to lean towards giving him credit that he got over some of the things that were keeping him from like using his brain correctly. I think that he was in a full-blown fugue state by the time the playoffs came around last season, and he was completely unprepared to be the head coach of the Boston Celtics. And it was like so far from his mind of actually coming true that he was just as surprised as the rest of us that he was in the position he was in. And he was just in a full blown panic. Like he was basically just having a panic attack every game. I think that Marcus leaving is another thing that Marcus leaving has done is I think there was a little bit of a Missoula Marcus Smart thing going on, a little bit of a
Yep.
tension or something along those lines. I don't think that they were getting along, and I don't think that Marcus was like moving the locker room with whatever influence he had in the direction of saying like Joe Missoula is our guy. So I think that like they had to decide on. I think in some way, maybe not in a really big blow up way, but in some way they had to decide whether it was Joe or Marcus, and they chose Joe, knowing that they can replace Marcus with a Drew Holiday type or whatever, whatever the plan was. But I want to give him the credit. I think that he like went off in the offseason. This is my hope that he went off in the offseason. He was like, stop being a little bitch, like stop fucking panicking every 10 seconds. You know the game of basketball, and whether you succeed or fail will not be because you were scared. Like it'll be for any other multitude of reasons, because it's very difficult to win championships in the NBA, but you can't be terrified. And I think he sort of said that over the course of the season so far and the preseason. He's been like, yeah, I kind of had to decide to like not be like a little bitch, to be honest.
Yep.
So I think it's probably both things, and I do think that I really am a firm believer in the people we put around him are good people, and the choices we made are very good choices. And there's a lot of experience and a lot of wily, savvy veterans of the game in our offices right now, reporting to the Auerbach Center every week. But I think Joe Missoula, I think maybe he just found some mental strength. Why? What do you think? You think it's just because Sam Cassell's there and he's just telling Joe Missoula how not to fuck up?
Well, I think that last year we expected him to learn everything on the job in his first year, in a year that he wasn't even expected to be the head coach, right?
Still won more games than Imo Udoka that season in the regular season, by the way. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, but he just forgot when to call a timeout. Like he couldn't stop a run. That was the most infuriating fucking thing. And we haven't seen if he's learned from that this year. But I think
he's better about it. I really do.
Yeah.
Already, I do think he's better about it.
I also
How
think
about Rob Williams getting hurt, huh?
I was just about to say, I think the last thing about Missoula, it shows a lot about his character, that he can be surrounded by guys that most people would say are better basketball minds.
Sure, yeah,
and
or maybe even prefer to have as the head coach. Like I wanted Sam Cassell as our head coach, so
and just take them on the staff and learn from them. But yeah, I mean, for those that obviously don't know, we just learned that Robert Williams might be done for the year. He's looking at it was it his left knee or his right knee? It was a knee.
Yeah, one of his knees. I don't know. I think his whole body's falling apart. I think we fucking dodged a huge bullet, and I think we were all somewhat in agreement. Like I think there was some section of the fan base that was still in love with like the best version, like highest ceiling of Rob Williams, but like that ceiling had to involve being able to play 65 games in a season at least, and he's just like not ever going to be able to do that, dude. Like he's just not at the level that he's at. Maybe he'll eventually get that knee fixed, but he'll be so fucking like battered and injured that like he won't be the same player.
He's going to be Grant Hill, just bigger.
Yeah, it just wasn't working out, and we moved on, and obviously we got a crazy amount more for him than we probably deserved. So, and I think that about Marcus too. I don't think he's clapped like injury wise. But I do think that Marcus Smart will retire from the NBA having played his best ever season and his best ever basketball in Boston. I just think that's a no brainer. So I think you get out high, you sell high, and we did on those guys, like really, really, really did. And I think that it was really impressive for them to recognize it and Brad to have the bravery to make that decision, because it wasn't necessarily, those decisions weren't necessarily popular in the offseason. But goddamn, is he like talking about Ray's thing, give him the flowers, back the flower truck up to Brad Stevens' office right fucking now. Holy shit. That guy did the right thing every time in the offseason.
He did the things that we were begging Danny Ainge to do, but we knew he never would. Like one of the things I love most about Brad is that he doesn't seem to be attached to the players. He just wants to build the best roster. Try.
I mean, Danny Ainge was hardly attached to the players. Fucking Isaiah Thomas. Come on. Like,
but he would have never traded Marcus ever. He wouldn't have done it.
I don't know. I don't have a negative opinion of Danny Ainge. I think
he brought us a championship. Neither do I.
Yeah, but even apart from that, even in this era, I think he's responsible for like at this point like still 65% of like the current iteration of our team. So, and like I don't know, every other GM was going to take Markelle Fultz, and he decided he was going to take Jason Tatum. So like for that, we are forever grateful. The rest is history. The rest is history.
That's right. All right, well, I think it's going to do it for this edition of MTP Boston. Thank you, DK, for sitting in and joining.
Thanks for having me.
For those out there, stay tuned for the power rankings this week. Hopefully, maybe there's going to be a special guest, me on there. But until then, we'll talk to you next week.
Hey there, I'm DC. I host the rock podcast, Back to the Arena, The Interviews. It's about a 30-minute podcast where I talk one-on-one with a band who has released new music. You can find us on all the best podcast sites like Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, and more. If you're a rock fan like me, subscribe today to Back to the Arena, The Interviews.
Electricast. Electricast.
Welcome to Tuning Into Sound Wellbeing, where we harmonise your mind, body and soul. I'm Amanda, your sound therapy expert.
And I'm Stephen, the curious explorer uncovering the mysteries of sound.
Together we explore vibrations, frequencies and the power of sound therapy and tuning forks.
Discover ancient wisdom, reduce stress, and tune into a healthier life. Subscribe to Tuning Into Sound Wellbeing today.
Electricast.